Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started. I know there's still some people coming from work and they'll be coming in. But in the meantime, I'm just too excited to get to our esteemed guest speaker tonight. So I will get right to it. I have some people I would love to thank first. All of you, first of all, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the Harn. Please enjoy after this. We've got a book signing, we've got a reception, and we have the whole museum open to you. So please enjoy your museum after this talk, and it'll be a chance to buy some books that we'll be, I know, talking about tonight. Um, so again, welcome to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here tonight for the Artist Talk with Esterio Segura, and for our exhibition, for coming to see our exhibition, Under the Spell of the Palm Tree, the Rice Collection of Cuban Art. The talk tonight is made possible by the generous support of the Bulla Cubana Festival, which you see up on the schedule. So thank you so much, Bulla Cubana. And we also are blessed with a lot of wonderful people who have sponsored the exhibition as well. So I'd like to take a moment to thank also our presenting sponsor, the Cuban Arts Group, with additional support provided by the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund, Ken and Laura Burns, Fine, Farcash, and Parlapiano, PA, Visit Gainesville, Alachua County, Bryson Foundation, Gail Olson, Rick and Osa Thompson, the Wells Fargo Foundation, Barbara Anderson, Maggie Labarda and John Cherry, Manny and Mercy Quiroga, the Latin Art Corps, and Dr. Art Consultant LLC, as well as other generous donors. Thank you so much to everyone. Of course, I always want to thank Susie and Mitchell Rice for sharing their gorgeous, beautiful, fascinating collection with us. I hope you've been to see it several times already. You've got until January to see it many more times. I invite you to spend as much time with it as you possibly can. It's so varied and rich. There's always something new to see for all of us. I also want to thank the curators of the exhibition, Gabby Azqui and David Horta, and our coordinating curator at the Harn, Dulce Roman, and of course, our esteemed guest, Esterio Segura, for joining us tonight. I will now introduce Gabby Azqui, and then she will come up and introduce our speaker. Gabby is an art curator, cultural manager, editor, and lecturer, among many, many, many other things. In 2016, Gabby Azqui began her tenure as a curator for the nonprofit organization, the Cuban Arts Group, and the Rice Collection, where she currently holds the position of chief curator. Her collaboration with these two associated organizations has led to more than 30 successful art exhibitions and events. Notably, she served as the chief editor for the art book Hybrid of a Chrysler, A Provocation to Fly, which is created in collaboration with Esterio Segura, and I know you'll hear about that later tonight. It is on sale, and there is a signing after this, so take advantage of that. I urge you to. She is also the co-author, and I'm so proud of this publication, this fantastic catalog that is also on sale and available for you. This is your chance to take this home with you and share it with your friends and look at this forever and ever and ever. It's beautifully written, it's beautifully composed, as well as the exhibition. So again, thank you so much, Gabby. I'd now like to ask you to join us up here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction, Leanne. And thank you to all of you for being here today. It's really a pleasure to have this opportunity to talk with the community and with all the people that have supported the exhibition. I would like then to introduce Esterio, so I would say brief words about him. Um, let's say that he is considered one of the most important Cuban artists today. It's a person that I have had the pleasure to work with for several years now, and I truly kindly call my friend. And let's talk a little about the beginnings of Esterio. He was born in Santiago de Cuba, in the eastern part of the island, but he grew up in Camagüey. That's that's the center eastern part of the island, and was there that he started his artistic let's say, studies since elementary school to high school under the teachings of very excellent professors specializing in sculpture. But as you will see today, his work range from all kind of media, from drawing, painting, um, photograph, everything you will see tonight. When he was 18 years old, then he gained a position as a student in the Art Institute in Havana. That's our most important school. And since the beginning, still being a student, he became one of the most important artists of that generation. He is considered one of the crucial figures in the influential movement of the 90s. So today, 30 years something later, he has participated in more than 300 something exhibitions, personal and group shows, and his work is included in several collections, public and private, and his work has been exhibited all around the globe. I would like to read these words from Professor Kathy Zimmerer about his work that I think they are very beautiful written. Crowded with fantastic ideas and powerful imagery, Segura's work resonates with the angst of the Cuban people. Yet, it is resolved in such a poetic manner that it clarifies the enduring beauty and creativity of life on the island. The talk that Esterio has prepared is titled, as you can see on the screen, Flying Will Always Be Infinite. During this conversation, Esterio will take us on a journey, beginning with the sculpture outside the museum, the hybrid of a Chrysler, and from there, he will delve into the origins of his exploration of themes such as travel, machines, hybrid, and concepts like freedom and change, all of which have been integral to his work from the very beginning. Please feel free to ask any questions you may have, even during the course of the talk. If you have any questions, just stand, give us the hand and we'll give you the microphone. We really want this talk to be more like a conversation. Also, if you want to wait till the end, you are free to do that as well. And well, without further ado, I introduce the man himself, Esterio Segura.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for coming, and it's really it's really a pleasure to be here for the second time for longer than 3 hours. It's my on my first trip here. Gabby was doing a show in a gallery space, and we drive from Tampa for a short time, and for me, it was like a short film. And now I've been right now longer than 16 hours today. And I've been very impressed about the city and all the things around, and so impressed about the museum as well. And so I did a little walk inside the museum, and people from this town should be very proud of having this museum. It's absolutely amazing, and I just hear that you're gonna grow up, and to the front would be most beautiful, I'm sure. And I'm very proud to be here, to be showing in this museum space. Thank you to all of you, especially Gabby, that is always thinking our conversations for many times and many years. Thank you to the museum for inviting me to be here. It's really an honor and pleasure. So Gabby asked me about if I have an idea to put on the talk. And I was like, really, I have a massive invasion in my mind of all the titles I've been working with, my work. I said, well, I have to make something else because there's too many at the same time. And what really take me for a long time thinking about my work, or one side of my work, is like the freedom. And when I talk about flying, I'm talking about freedom. And when you have freedom, you go to the infinity. You really feel like you're flying permanently, and you're able to watch everything from outside, everything from inside, everything around. So that's that's the idea behind this title, more or less. It's more like a concentration of all the concepts that I've been working on in the last years. Uh, if you see the whole body of work, it looks like I get focused on the flying things maybe in the last uh, 20, 20 years. But it's really something that happened in my mind from very early. When I was um, first time take with my dad to the school to make the exam to try to get into the art school, I was 11 years old. And there was two things that were very important in my life when I get into the school is the test have to one question was what you want to be when you grow up, and on that time I was like really I love to make drawings, I love to paint, but I want to be a pilot. So, but when they made me that question, I say, okay, I want to be an artist. It changed my life completely. But the drawing, it was three different kind of drawings and painting that we have to do to get inside the school. One was, like to paint it from real things, and the other one was free, and there was a view of an airport from the sky that I never made until I get 25. It was, and I was 11. And so I think that is that how begin all my journey on thinking about flying and stuff like that. So I'm gonna start see if this is a okay, yeah, because we was trying with a different device before, and then I found this one. So we're gonna start with the end, and at the same time as the begin. The I never really think to have a car for me like something that I want to collect or anything like that. I was always thinking about do you have a car about something that is useful for traveling, working, carrying things, and all that. And then but in 1995, when 2 years after I finished college, I was in the middle of having almost anything, and I decided, well, I need three things. I need a cell phone, I need I need a car, and I need a computer. So I get a very bad car. It's called Nash Rambler, a 1958 a station wagon that was able to put things inside. And that's how I start to get involved in things with cars. And then I start to understand what happened with the machine and things like that. Then I made the first. We're gonna see the Nash Rambler later, but then when I found out, I said I want a better car to drive it. And then the second car I found was a limousine Chrysler from 1953 that was belonged to the owner of one of the beer factories of Havana, the Polo beer, and then I started to have a very intense relation with the car because it was belonged to the lover of this guy. That's how it happened. And then I found, just by chance, one day in the street, it was an old lady that comes to me and I start crying. I was in the car and say, "What happened?" And if I asked her if she needs some help, and she said, "This was my car. I was the owner of the car." So what happened is that I bought the car from her godson, from her grandson, and I didn't know the whole story. He didn't tell anything, and then I was. That was the moment, early 2000, when I decided that because I was using ideas about flying sometime in some of the work, but not really focused on really talking about flying. And I said, well, I want to get focused on this project, and I did a project that is called "You Cannot Eat Everything That Flies." And and then since I bought the limo, I was thinking like I want to make something because it's already a piece of work happening in my mind all the time. And with all the need and the whole situation in Cuba, it's difficult to think like somebody's going to take uh, some thousands of dollars in car and turn into a piece of work. And the other thing that I found, there's many pictures of Cubans that come by the beginning of the revolution, and then after the 80s that come to the States, especially to the States, and they always have a picture next to a limo showing to their family in Cuba that they get rich and they okay and they just arrive and they have a limo. So it's a lot of different connections that have to do with the limousine in the history, and at the same time, this kind of limo it was used in the second part of the Godfather film. If you check in the film, and it was also in my mind. There was a moment that they have a meeting, and all together they have a big discussion, and some of them arrive in a limo exactly like this one. And so it was many things together coming from different histories that put together this piece of work that somehow is like representing all the kind of different things that people have in mind when they emigrate from one place to the other. When they have the chance to emigrate, dreams of people put together, dreams of people that are not really thinking about, they don't have any economical situation, they just want to grow up and keep going, keep growing, keep changing their life. So it's different point of view all put together in the work. Years later, right from the beginning, I was invited to show the piece out of Cuba to the Sao Paulo Bienal. But Cubans, American cars are not allowed to leave the country because they are patrimonial, and even if you try to get a permission, you never get a permission. So from the beginning, it was really difficult to get a passport for the car. And so that began to start to put more meaning on the story of the car. And then in 2006, I get the chance for the first time to take the car to Portugal for a biennale that somebody created. But at the end, never happens because for some legal situation, the car was not able to get to Spain, but it was not able to get to Portugal. So I have to return the car. But to get the car returned, I have to pay probably 3 times the price of the car because it was import, and then they have to be sent it back, and it was like quite complicated car. So he returned back, and so you get the passport to go to the airport and get back, and it was a long journey. For it was like about 7 months, in between one scene and the other. So it was always frustrate the way that the car tried to get out of the country, and then finally, when I met Susie and Mitchell Rice, years later, said, "Okay, why we don't make a version of the car, because the car has been invited to many different places, and the only way to do it is to find the same car in the States and remake the piece." So that way we was able to show the car for the first time in Tampa, which for me was like an amazing experience because Tampa is very well connected as the whole area here. I just hear that this land was belonged to Cubans before become like the second owner were Americans, right? And then so we chose the first time, and we get this one that is 1954 Chrysler. It's basically the same car. You have few changes. So in the catalog, if you get the chance to get the catalog, the book, you're gonna see the two cars, and that's why we put here the Chrysler with passport 2003. That was the same time that I create the other one, and it's a little bit different because the engines on the other one, on the old one, is one engine in both winds, and we made two engines in both winds for this one. The winds have to be replaced after the show in Tampa, so they were made in metal. It was too heavy. It was like a ton, the whole wind. So now we get less than half of a ton. I think it's 400 pounds now, right? And then since that, things that it's been traveling. It was at the Tampa Museum. It was at the Kennedy Center. It was at the Venice Biennale. It was here in another museum, the Creation Museum, and it was at the Perez Space 23 in Miami, and then here. So he's been traveling for well. He's been doing his job very well. I'm so happy, and I'm so glad that I have this in my mind for a long time. So after this, this was Venice Biennale in Tampa. It's been in display in many different ways. So you see, Venice Biennale was an amazing experience because you can imagine there's no cars in Venice around, and then it was a spectacular thing for people, and they accept the piece because it's for all the regulation. They accept to have the piece for at the beginning for only 12 days, and then since the first day, they realized that was a chosen, and then they. Sorry. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just wondering what happened to the original
Well,
limousine.
the original
Oh.
is in Havana. I actually get invited for the third time to do a solo show at the National Museum of Cuba for the next Havana Biennale on November 15.
Great.
And the one without passport is going to be by the entrance of the museum,
So
inside.
it's still showing its glory then.
Yeah.
Not forgotten. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then they decide right from the first day to keep it for 20 days. And then after a week, they say, okay, we're going to have it for a month. And then at the end, it was for 45 days. And so, which is for all the insurance and everything, it turned very expensive, the whole thing. But it was very intense, the connection between the people and the car. And this is the original one. Is it's a little difference, and they see the two engines on the wings, and it's a full piece. The wing is one full piece. One here is divided in two parts, and this was what, like, people don't believe how, because it was in the central yard of an old house in an old gallery house in Havana, and people thought that I put, because it's difficult to realize that winds are a part of the car, so you don't know how through the regular door the car get in with the winds. So they thought we put it with the helicopter inside the patio, and so from there was that I get the invitation that at the end turned to the Sao Paulo Biennale, and at the end I have to show only the drawings on linen that I have made about the piece. So I'm going a little bit back to the beginning of my career, my first years of college in Havana. So in Cuba, in my period of time, we have 3 levels of preparation in art. We have elementary art school for 3 years. that where you get all the class painting, drawing, print, sculpture, ceramic, and you make all different kind of improvisation with material. And then after that, you decide if you gonna do a sculpture, painting, or print, basically. And that's for 4 years. It's like a high school for art. Then when you finish that, you become a professional and teacher. So you finish with 18 years old, ready to teach elementary art school and even high school. So I was teaching from my 16. I was teaching in the school at the same time, and I made my first solo show when I was 16. So in 1986, and it was a traveling show around the province, and this piece was made in my first years of college. College in Cuba is 5 years. I think now they turn into 4, and elementary school disappeared. They have 4 years of high school and 4 years of college. So from 12 become 8, which I think that is a mistake, because especially when you are 12, 13, 14 years old, you're ready to improvise and have a very good training and do right. And so I think it was a mistake. And I know also it's because all the situation in Cuba, we used to get a lot of materials. I still have brooches from my 13 years old, Rembrandt brooches that come from Germany, and I still have it. So they very good. And I have made hundreds of watercolors, and I still using them. And so this piece was made in the period of time that there was many Cuban artists of the generation from the 80s that left the country, and I was trying to find myself in the middle of a very complex situation in terms of the history of the Cuban art, because it was looking like the whole space was looking like empty, and we will have I feel myself and the rest of people from my group. You're gonna have here the Carpinteros lecture soon. They from my own class, and so we get into the compromise of what we're gonna do now. All our teachers were leaving, and galleries was not showing anything. There was a very contradictional situation between the government and the artists, and a big percent of the artists left the country. And then I come out with this piece. It was one of the first pieces that I started to work with, and I started to use machines. And somehow this piece also become like the introduction in my work of things that I want to show. I like to do works that looks like they move, but they are static. And I like the illusion of moving, because what we live in Cuba for a long time was like a kind of illusion that we were moving and we were standing on the same place. And there was a moment that we start to get back. And so and the piece is called the Stereotype, because it becomes part of the education also, that we don't believe in anything. We don't believe they try to teach Cubans to don't believe in church, don't believe in any religion. Since the beginning of the revolution, almost any practice of any religion was censored, was almost prohibited to practice any religion. But we all have to be like somehow part of the new religion of the revolution. That was Marxist philosophy and the humanist and socialist ideas. But this was one of the first pieces that I did with the machine, and I didn't know. I was not conscious about how much I'm gonna need this image later in my work. Then a couple of years later, 4 years later, I make this piece. At the beginning of this time of my work, I was like more investigating about that kind of contradiction between the religion and the philosophy, the religion and the politics in Cuba, all the different kind of friction and contradictions that my family and family of many Cubans get into, and they get separate for more than for more than for personal situation, for political situations. Then I did in 1992. There was the in Cuba. They make one of the most important Cuban films that happened in Cuba. It's called Strawberry and Chocolates, and it was the same year that I did my first solo show in Havana. And then by chance, the director knew about my work, and they was working on the project for the film, and many people from the board decided that my work should be part of the film, the one that they were looking for, because there was one artist in the film, and then so all my work is in the film, in a Strawberry and Chocolate. So that really helped the work and introduced my work in a different area, in a different thing. And this piece is very well connected with many of the pieces that are in the film. And it's a version of the one before with the machine. And then this is another kind of machine that is very important in Cuba, construction. And the construction is very well connected with the construction of the socialist country. And this is another way that I use the machine and put together different part of the history. Is the history of Cuba and the architecture and many cultural ways is very eclectic. It's very mixed. And this is a carnival ride, and we used to have one of the most amazing carnivals of the Caribbean, but all the carnivals start to be not very important, and then we have some of the most amazing demonstrations of military guns in the Caribbean Sea. So that's part of the story behind the Buddha and the mulata gear this is not really talking about machine. It's talking about Cuba, and it's talking about philosophy, and it's talking about how to begin things and how to walk, and at the same time, the human body turned into a machine, into a walking thing, and it's another idea about how the creation of something have to do with movement, and how the creation of something have to do with the real connection between the human being and all what is around. And we used to say, all the people used to say, our motherland, but we have to be the ones that take care of the motherland at the same time. So it's that kind of reference, and I divide my work in many different projects. So this is belong to another project that I start in 1996, really, and I still work. Most of the projects are open, so I still working in more than 13 different projects and investigation. And what I'm working on right now is making a book about all the projects that I've been working on, and closing one by one all the projects that I have open to start new projects. And so this belongs to the same, that have to do with immigration, and have to do with the story between the island and the sea. And so how we carry on our own machine and our own fish. It's called the bridge number 2. It's actually it's part of the rice collection, and many of the paintings and drawings are at the same time projects for a sculpture. So this is a piece that at some point will become a three-dimensional piece of work. And in many of the three-dimensional pieces or installation that I do, I never use just one material. I always use different kind of material. So this piece, I think, is make and create on the way that it's going to be used with made with different materials. It's going to be kind of mixed media sculpture. And I said the whole project about the flying machines is called you can know eat everything that flies, and it's coming from a Chinese idea that said that you can eat everything that flies, runs, and swims. And but I'm because the project talk about something that is more like a poetical or philosophical meaning. It's more of talking about flying in terms of freedom, flying more in poetical terms. I was always, trying to find the way to connect everything together in an image. And so there are different studies and different drawings where I try to find myself inside, becoming part of that idea, becoming part of that machine, and also like trying to find a different way to finish on 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 very like not really connect with politics, more connect with like myself, more connect like with the spirit. And then I make all different kind of investigations. Uh, so it's like somehow in a spiritual way to find myself inside the idea of flying and having a different experience that have nothing to do necessarily with my own political perspective of my country, or not necessarily have to be the reference of Cuba, more like a kind of universal kind of reflection. Yes.
Actually, on the previous slide, I don't know if we can go back. Yeah, I was just kind of curious as to what the inscriptions were kind of around.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Mm. I was curious as to what like the text of
Oh yeah,
the parts
yeah.
being.
That's what. Oh, if you when you see the especially on this kind of paintings and drawings, I I made this kind of writing around the drawing around the body, and it's made in a way that looks like it's a kind of explanation of different part of the body or different maybe explanations of something that happens there. But really, they all poetical meanings, poetical reflections that have nothing to do with the body, have more to do with the connection between the human being and uh, the, the, the environment and different area, or reference to history. And I did the same. I mean, not only this one, I have another group of work that is with submarines, and where I explain, I explain part of the submarine, but they are no explanation of the submarine. They are more like all the poeticals and philosophical reflections I have during the time that I working on the drawing, that I think that are important for me, that have nothing to do with my body, have more to do with the rest of the people, with something, with the environment, with the history, with things that have nothing to do with the body itself. So the ego of the body itself is gone and turned to a spiritual kind of thinking.
Like the submarine. That's deep. I love
Yeah.
that. Thanks.
And then this is another series of work that is called Habanos Libres. And it was a project that I make an investigation about people that return from Africa. Um, uh, Cuba sent thousands of Cubans to fight in the wars in Africa, Nicaragua, and many other places. And at the same way that you have people from Vietnam that they turn back to, crazy, out of their mind, Some people have all different kind of problems. Some then return normal, but most of them they are not like a normal person anymore. We get the same thing in Cuba. We still having to probably to still people in Cuba walking in the street. They are not homeless. They are they have institutions that take care of them, but they live in a different kind of hallucination. So they get free out of their mind, free out of the whole history, free out of their past by by getting crazy, by really getting crazy. So, and this I call them Habanos Libre, and then I have a long investigation with pictures of them. And the biggest collection of pictures I make is at the Bronx Museum collection, and some of the projects as well. And I did like my own ideas or interpretation of what happens in their mind, because they all from a real person, from a real characters that walk in the street in Cuba. So this piece is this is more like because we also get people that went to study in Russia, went to study in all socialist country, and some of them was not able to really learn the language, and they was brilliant people that because the whole mm, contracts of cultural things they never get into the thing and they have to get back, and it was frustrating, and there was people that never have the chance to go. So when I finished my high school in 1989, I was either ready to go to the college in Havana or to go to Southern Russia. But happens that there's Troika, and it happens that the German wall, and I was not able to go. And until that moment, most of my teachers were graduates from Soviet Union, and they were very well trained in technical things. They really mastered some making a sculpture, painting, and anything. So my first 7 years of training, they were very sophisticated in uh, all the techniques that I can do in art. So painting, drawing, it was like really high the education in Camagüey City, and so I get to learn almost every city of Russia through then, and so this piece is like a self-portrait. It's a Russian black girl with a wig with the ski poles, and it's pulled by alligators, and the piece itself, the installation have music inside from the 70s, Russian music from the 70s, and so there was a moment of myself that I feel like a black Don Quixote, and so this is not a person that really exists. It's really a total creation of myself, and this is the Nash Rambler that I was talking about. Was the first car that I get, and it was a Nash Rambler cross country. It's in a station wagon, and it have 4,000 toys inside, voodoo toys. 4,000 is the extraofficial number of people that die in Africa and Nicaragua and Vietnam fighting for no reason, because we're not supposed to go anywhere. That people in Cuba love American cars and drive and get the ferry from Havana, coming to Florida and travel around the country and get back to Cuba. It was so easy. And that ferry finished the time of connection between Havana and Key West in 1961. And the last trip was with the American embassy in Havana. And there was the last people that left the country in that ferry. That was the last year that the ferry worked. And many of the American cars that we get in Cuba, they were second-hand cars, because the ferry was like a very important connection for business with used cars from the state to Havana. And the Nash Rambler was the first compact car ever made. and and one of the propaganda on the Nash Rambler in 1958 was that it was a young girl that comes to her mom and say, "Mom, my boyfriend is outside waiting for me." And she said, "What kind of car he's driving?" And she said, "It's a Nash Rambler." She said, "No, you don't going out," because the Nash Rambler have the front chair turned into a bed. And it was the time of having movies outside with all the cars, so they don't see the movie. so, and so I found this car in Camagüey. That was my hometown. Way back after I finished my college, I decided, well, I need to get a car, and a car that is kind of be useful. And so station wagon is good because I can put a lot of things inside. But I don't really know anything. I don't even know how to drive when I was 25. And I don't know how, a mechanic thing or anything. I just like the car, the way they look, and it's useful. But if it is the worst car I ever have, and I still have it in my collection of cars. So now I have a little collection of cars that all of them are being turned into a piece of work. So this is the car that I start my idea of using machines and talking about moving and directly using the cars in my own work. So right now they're going to be probably like um, mm, 16 different pieces made with cars. This is a after I did the Nash Rambler. This is a space occupied by a Rambler, because it really takes me a long time to understand what's the car about and to fix it and doing so many things. And the car itself with the toys have a talking about traveling. The another advertising of the car is Nike Cole singing I give you the keys to the Route 66, because the car was made to spend very low gas making all the Route 66. So the installation itself have not only the dolls have also the music of Nike Cole. I give you the keys on the Route 66. And so out of that, I make all this project with paintings and watercolors on the cars idea. This was the first time that I used a limo in a piece of work. So before the hybrid. Yeah. Okay, good. So there's some other pieces, machines. And there's another project with the Pinocchios, the Ghost Land. So the ideas about emigration, and well, Pinocchio is another long project. You saw the first one. You only have the chance to see in the show the Pinocchio, Napoleon and Pinocchio telling us a history, and all the projects all the pieces belong to a project called History by Her Own Tale, and it's about how contradictional can be the history when it's manipulated. It's based on the idea that who have the power make the history, and you always gonna get the history one way or the other is gonna be manipulated. You never get in the first moment when you read the newspaper, you don't get the real history. It's always manipulated, and only looking inside the history you wouldn't find the reality of the history. So, and Pinocchio is a character that is close to all of us. Is one time in life we did the same that Pinocchio. We lie, but when we grew up, we're still doing the same thing, but in a different way, and it's more complex, and it get connected with history, with politics, with social situation, with very complex political situations, and so history turned more complex as well. And Pinocchio is talking about all different points of the history and situation. So these are like airport cars, but his nose becomes like a lock. It's like they cannot move because it's. And there's another of the submarines. That's another one. The history in total talk about a lady that get here in the States in a submarine, and she was pregnant, but she was 80 years old. She was pregnant for 50 years, waiting to get her child born here. And this is a real submarine that I make with a Cadillac. Actually, I'm changing this piece. They're still with me, and it's going to be a drivable submarine, and we're going to do a performance in Havana, taking people, giving the right to people to drive around the city in a submarine. And the submarine itself has been in jail twice because by mistake the police saw taking the car to the shows. The police saw that was a real submarine that is going to leave the country, and. So you can look in the internet. You can say Cuban submarine, Cuban Cadillac submarine in jail, or with the police, and you will see the whole thing because it was video by people and it's posted in and this is a Chinese submarine. I believe that the Chinese board, the Chinese wall is no made out of a stone anymore. It's a kind of elastic. So the way that they think right now, and this is Making Love to Detroit. Basically, it's another project, and it's a Lincoln making love to a Chaika. And these are some of the last pieces I've been working on. These are pedal cars that were belong to children or families connect with the people that come with the Peter Pan project to the States. So they leave behind all the dreams in the little cars, and so I have made some idea of recreating their dreams in a real car. And this is one of the last group of work that I've been working. Normally, people ask me how long it takes you to make this project. I've been working on this project for over 12 years now, but I started to make the pieces itself about 1 year and a half ago. So this was the case, and now I'm working on this, making suitcases for people to live. And so it's going to be family portraits of people, because I have, it's from very simple scene. Every time I've been flying out of Cuba for almost 30 years now, and every time I organize my luggage, I have a lot of people working with me, and they always want to say, can I go in your luggage? And say, well, okay, I definitely going to make luggage for people to travel. So these are real people that work with me. So him and his part of his family. There's another guy that worked with me. And this is a girl that I know from very young, and I have seen her grow up. I know her almost with the same size of her daughter. And now she have a daughter, and this is another machine that I create. It's called Bellicoflautosaurus, and it's all the scenes, an image or portrait of a Cuban guy that can run, swim, fight, do everything at the same time. So it's like a very primitive machine, and this is one of the first pages of the History of a Chrysler, the book that we just make about the History of a Chrysler. And Gabby is going to introduce the book. It's a book that you can see outside here at the museum, at the library. Yeah, please.
Thank you so much. Well, if you have any questions, please let us know. Also, we will be here on the reception if you want to ask Esterio directly or to me. It will be lovely to answer you. We wanted to finish with the book because we started with the sculpture outside. And this book tells the story of all the travels the sculpture have had, and also how the sculpture became more than the sculpture itself, became drawings, paintings, the book. Also, there is a drawing, the original drawing inside the book that you can separate it as well. So it's more, we realize that it's kind of a performance, or it's kind of a concept that flies in different ways. So for that reason, also the name is A Provocation to Fly, because we didn't give any we left the story open because we knew that the car and the sculpture is going to fly. And after we finished the book, well, then went to Miami, then came here, and I think we'll continue to Virginia. So feel free to open the book, read it inside. We put a timeline so you can understand all the travel. But at the same time, the book speaks about all the idea of travel in all of Esterio's work. So it's not just about the sculpture, but about the topic of travel and migration and freedom in Esterio's work.
Thank you. One of the earliest slides, the title had the word atheist in it, and I didn't understand the concept behind it. I heard the movement part, but I didn't understand in general what the concept was.
Yeah, well, I think it's mm, is somehow basically talking about the kind of education uh, that was um, the the year that I start in college, and it was the I was part of the Young Communist Party until that year. I quit. My father, who was from the regular Communist Party and the boss of a big organization for over 25 years, he was very disappointed with me, and he stopped talking to me for a long, long period of time. Long period of time, until a few years ago, I have to say. Uh, and behind that piece is all the situation that happened with somebody that is a regular human being that come naked to this life, and he have to change everything that is in his mind for political reasons. My grandmother, from my mother's side, was not a religious person, but not really Christian religion person. It was no Cuban African religious person. It was just a religious person that she believed in herself, and she have say give somehow. My grandfather from my father's side was a religious person, but no belonged to any religion as well. So somebody who have a kind of gift as well, and they were the center of the family. And my grandfather from my mother's side, his mother, my great grandmother, she was a religious person as well. And then my father changed the whole view of the family. He somehow he was 14 years old when the revolution comes, and he went to study in communist schools. And when he was 19, he became part of the Communist Party, and he gave all his life to the country, believing in a dream as any other young person. And he was always proud that me and my brother were part of the Young Communist Party when we were ready for that and all that. And somehow was this piece is the image that the power have to create, very machist, very aggressive, ready for fight, very erotic in a macho way. And so there was the period of time in Cuba that to do art was like a gay position. And then for me to, or for many people to make their family to understand that they study art, people used to say, I used to say, because it was what was more in like in fashion was to be a doctor or to be an engineer. So I said to one of my granddad, I'm studying an engineering in art. It's really good. and and also is supposed to be a person that don't believe in any religion, stray, and don't believe in any religion. And so, and at the same time, it was like a self-portrait of my situation in all terms, because I was like away from my family, really away from my family for the first time, because I was in Havana, and I decided I don't want to go back. I want to keep work, and then literally I spent the 5 years of college in Havana. I went once a year for 3 days every vacation. I was full time working and studying in the school, and since the beginning, because my father started talking to me, so I don't want to go to vacation for going home. I want to see some of my teachers in Camagüey for 3 days. I spend time with them and my grandpa, and get back to Havana to the school, and finding out how I made my life during 2 months of vacation, because I was not allowed to have food in the school, so I have to find food outside the school for 2 months, July and August, that are the vacations in Cuba. So somehow this piece was like a self-portrait of all the contradiction that happened with myself, and during that period of time that I was also thinking about what I'm gonna do with everything that I learned from life, from art, from my friends, from my family, is somehow put together in that piece of work. And so that's more or less what is behind that piece.
Hi. I was wondering if you could talk about the partially submerged hippopotamus piece that was in your studio in May. And we understood from your son that that had to do with Hemingway and the,
Oh, you mean
yes,
the hippopotamus?
yes, the
Yeah,
hippopotamus.
this is a new project that I'm working on. I don't really want to start on that project until I finish with all this group of work to close every single project. I can stop working, so I start the first one, and it's called Iceberg, and it's a head of a hippo that is emerging from the water. It's a big head. It's actually growing. It's bigger now, bigger than the one that you saw. Because because and yeah, because when I get back, I decided it's still smaller, because I I I make a like a leather, and I see the piece from the top. I said no, it's not enough big for the piece, but it's part of a big project that is called a political tour, and it's based on the idea that every country or every culture have a political image that sell as a souvenir everywhere. And there is many reasons why people go to different places, like going to Cuba right now is very exotic, because you don't ever going to see something like that again. And what happened with Russia with the perestroika, what happened with Germany after the war, what happened with Vietnam after the war, what happened with many countries, and what happened with or what every single country wants to sell as an image, and especially about as a political image. So I have made like a mental tour all around the world to all the different, they say not the most important country, but the most uh, popular countries in political terms that are involved in different things right now or in the last 20 years. I mean, I don't want to go further back, because I'm talking more for the new generation than for the old generation. I want people to get close to things that are happening, and I don't want to give solutions, but I want to give a different idea of what is happening. And so I made this one with the hippo. It is about Africa. One of the things that happened with Africa is that mm, most people, especially in all the West area, see Africa as one country and not as many countries, as one continent. They see as one whole thing. That really means that we don't know Africa, really. And at the same time, Africans are like the hippo. The hippo looks like very nice, and it looks like funny, easy, but it's not. It's very territorial. And Africa is showing just half of the face, and it's like an iceberg. And it's like the idea of Hemingway about literature. It's showing just the title, but it's not showing the rest of the story.
Well, I just wanted you to know that Valerie Hemingway was with me when we saw that and was quite stunned to find a connection in your studio.
Thank you.
I have the microphone right here for you. Is that right? I have it's on. Oh, thanks. I want to thank you so much for this exhibition. I don't think I've ever been quite as drawn in by any series of works as I have by yours. And there's a couple of random thoughts but I have a question for you too. Living in this very constricted space, and you talked about this is truly an image of yourself at a certain time. But I think as your work goes on, I see a lot more irony in it as well. And for example, where you had the people and the machines, and you explained very well, I'm sure the people hearing it would be able to accept that. The idea of movement of humans and machines and so forth, but there were so many people not just carrying their machines, but split in half by their sides, run through with their instruments that they were holding. So my question to you, and the last couple that you put in with the valises, with the suitcases and the people, is how can you keep working with this kind of yearning and deep feeling for what your other people are going through? How do you keep it up? It makes me want to cry.
Well, I think that one is my responsibility. I have to. I have to. I'm probably one of the few Cuban artists that don't left the country in the last years, and I've been always. I have the chance from very early, from longer than 28 years now. I've been able to travel in and out. From the first year, from the first time when I went to Mexico in 1995 and to England in 95, 96, and then New York in 96, my father thought that I'm going to leave, that I'm going to stay outside. And I said, no, I don't want. I need to. The way I started doing this work, I was like very focused on the history and the developing culture of Cuba. And it was very, dense and serious kind of reflection. It became ironic in the way that I started learning and understanding what happens behind, and it was also that I want to get people get closer to somehow something that is belong to their life, to their history, to their culture, and so the word turned into something like more vernacular somehow, and using elements that are not just belong to me, belong to everybody else. And even after a long period of time traveling out, I try to escape myself from what really happens around myself. But in 2009, I bought, having the chance to buy a studio in any of the nicest areas of Havana, or even outside of Cuba. I bought my house in the Bronx of Havana, that is El Cerro, and I have all different kind of human rights around my studio. And honestly, I don't have to read the newspapers. I get the newspaper talking with my neighbors every day, and they respect the studio, which is a beautiful house and a space that I love. Some of you have the experience of having, I think it's beautiful studio for any artist around the world. And I'm proud of being 1 little percent, part of the 1 little percent of artists that have the chance to live the whole life by making my own artwork. And at the same time, I have a lot, a lot of influence and knowledge about all different kind of religions and practices in Cuba, just having the studio there. And it's not going to happen if I live in Miramar or in Siboney. There are some of the wealthiest traditional places of Havana. And the other thing is that really thinking about the way to find materials and everything in Cuba to make my own artwork, 90% of my work is black market proceeding. It's 90% of the material of my work is coming from the black market. It's not illegal, and it's all helping all my people around. So that's it.